13 fuel-saving secrets gas stations don't want you to know. You know, I've spent 20 years under hoods, in greasy driveways, and on dealership floors. And if there is one thing I've learned, it's that the house always wins unless you know the rules they aren't telling you. Today, I'm going to pull back the curtain on the 13 fuel-saving secrets that gas stations absolutely do not want you to know, because every drop you save is a penny out of their pocket. You're going to learn how to stop being a victim of the pump, how to spot the psychological traps at the station, and exactly which maintenance habits are actually draining your bank account while you sleep. This is the Eff Car Habits Podcast. This episode is designed for you to listen to while you drive, work, take care of your day, or relax. Enjoy it however fits your life. Let's start with a personal confession from my days working the service desk at a high-volume dealership. I used to see people come in all the time complaining about their gas mileage, and 9 times out of 10, they were falling for the biggest marketing scam in the industry: premium fuel. Ha! Seriously? People think that premium means better or cleaner. It doesn't. It's just a measure of octane, which is basically just the fuel's resistance to pre-ignition. If your car is a standard commuter and the manual says regular, putting premium in is like throwing $20 bills directly into the trash. I've seen customers spend an extra $800 a year on high-octane gas for a base model sedan because they thought they were treating the car. The gas stations love that confusion. They label it with gold colors and names like V-Power or Supreme to make you feel like a bad car owner if you don't buy it. Unless you're running a high-compression turbo or a luxury engine that specifically requires it, you are just subsidizing the station's Christmas party. Now, let me tell you about something I saw constantly as a mobile mechanic. I'd pull into a driveway to do a simple oil change, and I'd glance at the tires. Oof, yikes! Most people wait for that little horseshoe light on the dash to come on before they even think about air. But here is the secret. That TPMS light usually doesn't trip until you've lost 25% of your pressure. By then, you've been driving on soft rubber for months, creating massive rolling resistance. It's like trying to ride a bike through sand. I once had a customer who was obsessed with his MPG dropping on his truck. I checked his tires. They were all down by 8 pounds. He was losing nearly 2% of his efficiency every single mile. We aired them up to the door jamb specs, not the max pressure on the tire sidewall, mind you, and his mileage jumped back up instantly. Gas stations make a killing on people who are too busy to spend 2 minutes at the air chuck. Speaking of things that drag you down, let's talk about the storage unit on wheels. I can't tell you how many times I've hopped into a customer's car to test drive it and felt like I was driving a lead sled. People carry around sets of golf clubs, bags of salt for the winter in the middle of July, and old car parts they meant to drop off at the scrapyard 3 months ago. Jeez, every 100 pounds of junk in your trunk is a 1% hit to your fuel economy. It adds up. And don't even get me started on empty roof racks. I see these sleek SUVs with crossbars and bike racks that haven't seen a bicycle since the Clinton administration. At highway speeds, those bars are like a parachute. You're fighting the wind every second you're on the interstate. I've seen data showing an empty roof rack can kill your mileage by 5% just by existing. If you aren't using it, take it off. It's free money. Wait, let me think. There's also the idling myth. My grandfather used to swear you had to let a car warm up for 10 minutes in the morning. Back in the carburetor days, yeah, maybe. But with modern fuel injection? Nah, your car is ready to go in 30 seconds. When you sit in your driveway letting it idle, you are getting 0 miles per gallon. Literally, you're just burning fuel to move a needle on a clock. I've watched people sit in school pickup lines for 20 minutes with the engine humming. The EPA says if you're stopped for more than 10 seconds, it's actually cheaper to turn the car off and restart it. Gas stations love the warm-up ritual because it's pure waste. It's fuel burned for no reason other than habit. Now let me tell you about this truck I worked on last week. The guy was complaining about a sluggish feel. I pulled his air filter and it looked like a charcoal briquette. Seriously? It was packed with road grit and bees. Now, the computer in a modern car is smart. It'll adjust the fuel trim so you don't lose a ton of MPG like old cars did, but it kills your power. And when you lose power, what do? You bury your right foot deeper into the pedal to get up to speed. That's where the fuel goes. You're overcompensating for a choked engine. A $20 filter can save you $100 in gas over the next few months. It's the simplest DIY fix in the book, yet so many people ignore it until the car literally won't breathe. Next, a quick story about a sedan with a mysterious fuel smell. The lady thought she had a massive leak. I looked at her gas cap. The rubber seal was dry-rotted and cracked. Every time she parked that car in the sun, fuel was evaporating right out of the tank. It's a slow, invisible leak that never hits the pavement. Gas stations don't mind a leaky cap because you're basically paying for gas that turns into clouds. If your cap doesn't click or the tether is snapped, spend the $10 to replace it. It's one of those tiny things that pro mechanics look for immediately, but the average driver never notices. Okay, so we've covered the basics, but we're just getting started. There are psychological tricks these stations use with their pricing and pump layouts that are designed to make you spend more without realizing it. I've seen it from the inside, and once you see it, you can't unsee it. We're going to dive into the mid-grade trap and why the time of day you buy gas might actually be a myth, despite what your uncle told you. Stick with me, because the next few secrets are the ones that really move the needle on your monthly budget. Let's talk about the time of day myth, because I get asked this at every backyard barbecue. People think if they buy gas at 4 a.m. when it's cold, the fuel is denser and they get more for their money. Let me put this clearly. It's mostly nonsense. Gas is stored in massive underground tanks that are heavily insulated by the earth. The temperature of that fuel barely moves a degree, regardless of whether it's noon or midnight. The only density change is happening in the few gallons sitting in the pump's internal lines above ground, and even then, we're talking about a fraction of a penny. The real reason gas stations want you there at noon is because that's when you're likely to go inside and buy a $5 soda and a bag of chips. That's where their real profit is. The fuel is just the bait to get you to the hook. I remember a customer back at the dealership who was convinced his car was allergic to certain brands of gas. He'd only go to one specific station. Now, there is some truth to top-tier gasoline. Brands like Costco, Mobil, and Shell use higher concentrations of detergents that keep your intake valves clean. If you use the no-name gas from the station behind the grocery store for 10 years, yeah, you're going to get carbon buildup. I've seen cylinder heads caked in gunk because someone wanted to save 3 cents a gallon. But here is the secret. You don't need top tier every single time. If you're on a road trip and the only station is a dusty pump in the middle of nowhere, take the cheap stuff. Just run a bottle of high-quality fuel system cleaner through the tank every few months. It's the same chemistry, just delivered differently. Now let me tell you about this SUV I had in the shop for a transmission issue. The owner said it was shifting hard, and the mileage was tanking. I took it for a spin and realized he was just an aggressive driver. He was binary, either 100% throttle or 100% brake. No, for real! He'd zoom up to a red light and slam the anchors at the last second. I told him, "Man, you're paying for that momentum twice. You pay for the gas to get up to speed, and then you pay for the brake pads to throw that energy away as heat. If you see a red light a quarter mile ahead, just take your foot off the gas. Coasting is free. It's the mobile mechanic's secret to making a car last 300,000 miles. Anticipating traffic can boost your MPG by 30% in the city. That's huge! Wait, hold on. Let's talk about the AC versus Windows debate. This is the one that starts fights in the passenger seat. I've tested this myself with a scan tool hooked up to the engine load. In the city, at low speeds, the AC compressor is a parasite. It can sap 10 to 15% of your fuel. Cracking the windows is definitely better when you're crawling through traffic. But once you hit 55 or 60 miles per hour, the drag from open windows turns your car into a brick. At highway speeds, the aerodynamic penalty of open windows is actually worse than the engine load of the AC. So, the rule of thumb from a guy who's lived in shops: windows in the city, AC on the highway. And always use the recirculate button. It's easier for the car to keep cool air cool than to turn 100-degree outside air into a breeze. I once saw a guy at a gas station trying to top off his tank after the click. He kept clicking the handle, trying to squeeze every last drop in. Oof, don't do that. Seriously? When the pump clicks, stop. Your car has something called a charcoal canister designed to catch fuel vapors. When you overfill, liquid gas can slosh into that canister and ruin it. That's a $500 repair just because you wanted an extra 10 cents of gas. Plus, most modern pumps have a vapor recovery system that will actually suck that extra gas back into the station's tank. You're literally paying for gas that goes back to the station. Talk about a scam they don't want you to know. Next, a quick story about a fuel-saving gadget I saw on a late-night infomercial. It was a magnet you clipped onto the fuel line. The claim was it aligned the molecules for better burn. Sure. I've seen people buy these, and I've seen them buy the vortex inserts for the intake. Let me save you some money. They are all garbage. If a $5 magnet could increase fuel economy by 20%, every car manufacturer in the world would have them factory installed to meet government regulations. There is no magic pill for physics. The only real gadget that works is the one already in your car: cruise control. Actually, let's talk about adaptive cruise control. Most people with new cars are afraid of it. They don't trust the car to brake for them. But from a technical automotive knowledge standpoint, the computer is way better at maintaining a steady fuel trim than your foot is. Your foot constantly makes micro adjustments that tell the injectors to spray just a little more, then a little less. It's inefficient. A steady speed is the holy grail of fuel economy. I've seen drivers gain 3 or 4 mpg just by letting the car handle the throttle on long trips. It's a high-value automotive insight that most people ignore because they want to feel in control. Now let me tell you about this truck owner who thought he was being smart by drafting behind semis. He'd get right up on their bumper to stay in the slipstream. Yeah, that's a great way to end up as a hood ornament. While the physics of drafting are real, you can save 30% on fuel. The reality is you're gambling your life for a few bucks. One pothole, one blown tire on that trailer, and it's game over. Plus, the rock chips will destroy your paint and windshield, costing you way more than you saved in gas. There are better ways to be wise with your fuel than playing chicken with a 20-ton rig. Let's shift gears and talk about something most people never check: the wheel alignment. I had a customer come in with a sedan that was eating gas. I put it on the rack and found the front wheels were toed in just a fraction of an inch. It was like the car was trying to drive with its toes pointed together. Every mile he drove, the tires were scrubbing against the pavement instead of rolling over it. It's like dragging a heavy box instead of pushing it on wheels. A bad alignment can kill your mileage by 10% and ruin a set of tires in 6 months. If your steering wheel is even slightly off-center, you're giving the gas station a tip every single day. Now let me tell you about a secret I learned from a dealership veteran. He told me to always look at the gas station's maintenance. If you see a station where the pavement is cracked, the pumps look like they haven't been cleaned since the 90s, and the out-of-order signs are everywhere, keep driving. Why? Because those underground tanks have filters. If the station is cheap on maintenance, those filters are likely clogged or bypassed. You could be pumping sediment and water directly into your fuel system. I've had to drop fuel tanks and clean out mud because someone bought cheap gas from a neglected station. That's a $1,000 repair to save 2 cents a gallon. It's not worth it. Wait, let me think. Oh, the mid-grade trap. Have you ever noticed that mid-grade is always exactly in the middle of regular and premium? That's because it's literally a 50-50 blend of the two. The station doesn't even have a mid-grade tank. The pump just pulls from both. Here is the kicker. Almost no car on the road requires mid-grade. It's either regular or premium. Mid-grade is a psychological safety net for people who feel guilty buying the cheap stuff but are too frugal for the expensive stuff. It's a profit padding button for the station. If your car doesn't need premium, stick to regular. Don't let them guilt trip you into the middle button. Now let me tell you about this mobile mechanic job I did for a guy who was hypermiling. He was doing everything: overinflating his tires to 50 psi, turning off the engine at every stop, even folding in his side mirrors. Oof, yikes! I told him, "Buddy, you're gonna kill yourself to save a gallon of gas." Overinflating tires makes the contact patch tiny, which means you have zero grip in the rain. It also wears out the center of the tire and beats up your suspension. I've seen blown struts and popped tires from people trying to be too smart. Stick to the manufacturer's maintenance strategy. They spent millions of dollars testing what works best for that specific vehicle. Next, a quick story about a customer who thought his fuel injectors were bad. The car was stumbling and the MPG was down to 12. I checked his spark plugs. They were the original plugs from 120,000 miles ago. The gap was so wide you could park a truck in it. When your spark is weak, you get incomplete combustion. That means unburned fuel is literally being blown out the exhaust pipe. You're paying for gas that isn't even making the car move. A simple tune-up with high-quality iridium plugs can restore 5 mpg instantly. It's premium automotive education. The engine is a system. If one part is weak, the whole thing guzzles. Okay, so let's talk about the weight issue again, but from a different angle. I see people who keep their gas tanks full all the time. They hit the station when they're at 3/4. Now, gas weighs about 6 pounds per gallon. If you have a 20-gallon tank, that's 120 pounds of liquid you're hauling around. If you're just commuting 5 miles to work, you don't need a full tank. You're carrying extra weight for no reason. I usually tell people to keep it between 1/4 and 1/2 for city driving. It's a small thing, but in the world of data-driven recommendations, every pound counts. Just don't let it get too low in the winter, or you'll deal with condensation in the tank. Now let me tell you about this scam I witnessed at a dealership trade-in. A guy brought in a car that was pristine, but the mileage was terrible. I hooked up the scanner and found the thermostat was stuck open. The engine never reached its closed-loop operating temperature. The computer thought the engine was still cold, so it kept dumping extra fuel into the cylinders to warm it up. It's like driving with the choke on in an old car. The owner had no idea because the needle on the dash was close enough to the middle. A $30 thermostat was costing him $20 a week in extra gas. If your car takes forever to get warm, get it checked. Wait, seriously? I almost forgot about the fuel pump secret. Gas stations hate this one. Most people wait until the low fuel light comes on to fill up. From a mechanical reliability standpoint, that's a disaster. Your fuel pump lives inside the tank, and it uses the gasoline itself as a coolant. When you run the tank dry, the pump runs hot. I've replaced dozens of fuel pumps for people who always run on fumes. That's a $700 repair. So, while you're trying to save money on gas, don't end up spending it on a tow truck and a mechanic. Keep at least 1/4 tank. It's the wise way to play the game. We're in the home stretch now, and I want to talk about the aerodynamic secrets that go beyond just roof racks. Have you ever seen those grill blocks or belly pans on hybrid cars? They're there for a reason. Air getting trapped under your car or swirling around in the engine bay creates massive drag. Now, I'm not saying you should duct tape your grill shut. Geez, don't do that, you'll overheat. But I am saying you should check your air dam. That's the plastic flap under your front bumper. I see them torn off or hanging by a thread all the time. People think it's just a dust shield. It's not. It's designed to direct air around the car instead of under it. If yours is missing, you're losing 1 or 2 mpg at highway speeds. It's a technical automotive knowledge nugget that most people overlook. Now, let me tell you about a customer story involving a guy who was obsessed with fuel system treatments. He'd buy a bottle every single time he filled up. How do I put this? That's overkill. Most modern gasoline already has detergents. You only need a concentrated cleaner every 3,000 to 5,000 miles to keep the injectors from dripping instead of misting. When an injector drips, the fuel doesn't burn completely. It's like trying to light a log with a bucket of water instead of a spray bottle. A clean spray pattern is the secret to that like-new fuel economy. I've seen cars gain 10% efficiency just from one good cleaning cycle. Wait, hold on. Let's talk about the transmission and how it affects your wallet. I see people who drive in sport mode all the time because they like the pep. Well, Sport mode just tells the computer to hold gears longer and keep the RPMs high. High RPMs equal high fuel consumption, period. If you're just cruising to the grocery store, leave it in eco or normal. I've seen people complain about gas prices while their tachometer is sitting at 3,000 RPMs in the city. It's a self-inflicted wound. Use the technology the way it was designed, and your bank account will thank you. I remember a driveway repair I did for a neighbor. He was convinced his fuel pump was failing because the car was sluggish. I checked his brakes. One of his rear calipers was partially seized. The brake pad was constantly rubbing against the rotor. It was like he was driving with the parking brake on. He was burning through gas and brake pads at the same time. If you let off the gas on a flat road and the car feels like it's pulling to a stop, you've got a dragging brake. It's a common problem that robs you of power and efficiency. Now let me tell you about the oxygen sensor secret. This is the brain of your fuel system. It tells the computer exactly how much gas to spray. These sensors degrade over time, even if the check engine light isn't on yet. They get lazy. A lazy O2 sensor can make your engine run rich, meaning it's using more gas than it needs. I usually recommend replacing them every 100,000 miles as a maintenance strategy. It's like giving your car a new pair of glasses. Suddenly, it can see the fuel mix clearly again, and your mileage goes back up. Okay, so let's talk about the scams at the pump itself. Have you ever noticed how some pumps are incredibly slow? People think it's just an old pump. Sometimes, it's because the station hasn't changed the internal filters. But here is the real secret. If you see a tanker truck filling the underground tanks, keep driving. When that fresh fuel pours in, it stirs up all the sediment and water at the bottom of the tank. If you pump right then, you're getting all that junk in your car. I've seen bad gas ruin an entire fuel system in 10 minutes. Wait at least an hour after the tanker leaves before you buy from that station. Next, a quick story about a dealership trick. They'll often tell you that you need a fuel induction service every 15,000 miles. Now, as a guy with shop experience, I'll tell you, it's a high-profit item for them. Does it help? Yes, especially on direct injection engines that get carbon buildup on the valves. But do you need it every year? Nah. Every 30 to 50,000 is usually plenty. Don't let them scare you into spending $200 every time you get an oil change. Be wise, be grounded, and know your car's manual. Finally, let's talk about the big one. The secret that can save you over $1,500 a year. It's not a gadget, it's not a special fuel, and it's not a secret button. It's your route planning. I see people who drive to the store, come home, then realize they need something else and drive back out. Every time you start a cold engine, it uses a massive amount of fuel to get up to temp. If you combine your errands into one loop, you're driving a warm, efficient engine the whole time. I've tracked this with customers, and trip chaining can save you 20% on your monthly fuel bill without changing a single thing about your car. It's premium automotive education at its finest. I've spent my life in driveways and dealerships, and I've seen every trick in the book. The gas stations want you to be passive consumers. They want you to just pull up, swipe your card, and not think about it. But when you know these 13 secrets, you're the one in the driver's seat. You're the one who decides how much of your hard-earned money stays in your pocket and how much goes into their tanks. It's about being smart, being proactive, and understanding the machine you drive every day. Don't forget to check the description for this week's top Amazon Auto Deals link.